Hey, Bobby, I got the money.
Yeah, I made the team. But you're a hooker.
Get that goddamn thing out of your mouth.
Where's head and knockers?
Spooky ain't got no real poetry.
Get up, Brenda.
We're gonna play a little game, baby.
I just love funny games. Get a little girl all hot and horny.
You could have been decent once in a while. And maybe Daddy wouldn't have had to kill himself because he couldn't get it up anymore.
What a shame.
Come on, just step on the gas before we get creepy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Grindbin. I'm Mike Wood, and today we have special guest returning from the Kinjite episode from the one half of the 1980s Movie Graveyard podcast, Corey G.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me back on and letting me pick the movie.
I'm so glad you brought this one to me. Chris is still out of town, and you kindly agreed to be on the show so we could have just something else to give the listeners here.
And I always try to give the listeners something, and I can't give them on my show. You know, mine's 80s, so I always try to find another year if I'm a guest anywhere.
And you are a fountain of knowledge when it comes to 90s direct-to-video action movies. You've given me lots and lots and lots of recommendations.
I am. I used to, I would come home. I remember that's what I would look forward to, and remember, for sure, when Kickboxer 4 came out, I was so excited that I got a pizza. I stayed home. I canceled a date I was supposed to have, and I just watched it. Yeah, every week I used to, because the Blockbuster by our house would have, when they would get them, they would only get one copy. So they had this wall called Hot Singles, and it would be all these straight-to-video action movies. And I would dare to say I've probably seen 90% of what's come out. And it took me forever. I started rebuying them all on DVD. I've got ones from Russia, Czechoslovakia, Australia, just so I could have them all.
Yeah, I think this one today, Back in Action, is only on Region 2 DVD, right?
Yeah, this one, and then there's a follow-up called Tough and Deadly. Yeah, they're both Region 2 only, which is really weird because Sony Pictures put these out, I believe.
And then they just haven't released them again, huh?
No, and if you Google it, they're highly searched. I mean, they're cult status, so to speak, as far as action fans go, and professional wrestling fans.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing about this movie is because it's called Back in Action. It's hard to find online when you Google it, because if you just put in Back in Action, all you get is the Looney Tunes Back in Action movie.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. You have to add that Rowdy Roddy Piper after it. That always helps.
Yeah, or everything I've done for the research, I put Back in Action 1993. And usually you can get it, but you'll still get these Looney Tunes results. So
yeah, and I always got to look at Brandon Fraser when I see those.
So
although I like Looney Tunes Back in Action, I won't lie to you.
Haven't seen it.
I have kids. Well, I have a kid.
It's interesting you say they release these foreign, because I did find in my research that there was another Billy Blanks movie with somebody else in this movie that did really well, and that's one of the reasons that this movie was made. It did really well overseas.
Which one was that?
It's TC-2000.
TC-2000 was Jean-Marie, and that's the most leading poster, because I have it on Laserdisc, actually. And you see Billy Blanks, and because it's there's an android in it and everything, and you see Billy Blanks. He looks like the Terminator.
I was going to say, looks just like Terminator.
He's not the robot in it. It's some chick that used to be his partner. But the movie's really cool. I mean, I dig it. Bolo Young's in it. It's just it's a great film.
Yeah, and that's the reason, apparently, in the limited amount of information I could find about this movie, is why this movie was made. It was made specifically for direct-to-video markets here, but they knew it was going to be a hit overseas because of that movie.
Well, and Blanks had a nice string. I mean, he had Talons of the Eagle, that's a pretty sought-after film. That one's really good. He did these with Piper because they were trying to showcase, because, he was a legit kickboxer, and that's when they were kind of bringing all these guys to the movies. But he made this one badass movie. You have to see it. Your listeners have to see it. It's called Showdown.
It's a good one.
In this one, a kid moves in to a new town and has to go to a new high school, and he likes the pretty girl whose boyfriend is a crazy martial artist who beats the shit out of him. But luckily, Billy Blanks is the janitor at the school. He teaches the bully kid martial arts. But in the twist, he teaches him martial arts so he can fight the other kid in the underground arena of death.
That sounds pretty great.
It's awesome.
I have it in my
Christine
research.
Taylor's first film.
Oh, nice. I had in my research that was like his first starring role with Showdown. And then TC 2000, and then this movie.
Yeah, Talons of the Eagle's one you need to check out too.
I didn't even write that one down because he's in quite a bit. But
his first movie is actually Bloodsport.
Yeah,
Not
I saw
Bloodsport, Blood Fist.
Blood Fist, and then I have, well, obviously most listeners probably know Billy Blanks from his Tybo videos.
And The Last Boy Scout.
Yeah, and this is the same Billy Blanks, so
yes,
it's not a different guy. This is the guy with the workout videos. I had his first thing he was ever in 1989, uncredited in Tango and Cash. He was in the prison.
Really?
Yeah, and then 1990 he was in Lionheart. He was a African legionnaire.
Okay, I just watched that a few weeks ago. I didn't catch him.
Yeah, he's really small roles, and then you're right, 1991, Last Boy Scout. That was pretty much the first time he had like an actual character name. And the funny thing about most of his roles are his names are almost always Billy.
It's probably because he's dumb. That's my only guess. And they probably tried to call him something else, and he never answered.
You know, I have not seen many Billy Blanks movies, and I was
seen them all,
surprised.
I think.
I was very surprised that he's been in more movies when I looked into what he's done, because his acting
video now, because my wife would do him. If you watch one now, or like one of the last ones he did, he's really good, really animated. But if you watch that very first, go on YouTube and watch the very first Tybo video, he's awful too. He's like, punch. And I remember at one point he's like, getting thirsty, get a drink of water, you just come on back, I'll be here.
Wow.
Waiting for you.
Well, I have, believe it or not, he's still acting. Last thing I had was he's still doing like TV shows and some direct-to-video stuff. The last thing I have is he's currently in some movie. It's called Almost Amazing, and it's a romantic comedy, believe it or not. So
He's got to be an extra or something.
Yeah, he has a character name, but it's just like Mr. So-and-so, so I'm sure it's nothing big.
Yeah, his acting was always bad, but I think that he probably kept getting all that work because he was such a good martial artist, you know. I mean, he's actually pulling off cartwheel kicks, double jump kicks. I mean, he was really talented. He couldn't act.
Oh, I'll give him credit in this movie. Like, the fight scenes he's in are great. Well, I guess it's just mostly kicks, but there's a few parts where it's awesome, where he does like that double kick, kicks a double jump kick, kicks the guys in the face and ripping through walls and everything. I mean, he's pretty good.
Yeah, and he's jacked.
Yeah.
So I get why you would cast him. Yeah, his acting in this, and then after this they did Tough and Deadly. I think they probably filmed it like back to back because it was Piper too. Their chemistry was actually pretty good together. So this is probably those are his two best acting roles, believe it or not.
Well, moving on to the crew for it, I got a few things for the crew. What I thought was interesting was this movie is apparently directed by two directors, but I have a theory that maybe one of them was replaced at some point, because there seems like a point in this movie where they just stopped caring about any sort of story and just went to action scenes.
Oh yeah, it was repetitive one after another.
Yeah, it like in the beginning of the movie, it's so weird because they focus on so much of this dialogue and what's going on, and then towards halfway through the movie, they literally just cut out any exposition or anything, and there's scenes that just almost make no sense. Like, I thought maybe I had like a cut version of the film or something, and I'm looking all...
No.
Because there's just chunks of time that are missing. And I'm wondering if maybe it wasn't going like they thought it was and replaced somebody, but I can't find any information.
I'm thinking maybe like they just cut out all his acting scenes.
There could be. But the one guy, so the two directors, you have Steve DeMarco, one of them, mostly all he did, it still does actually, is just TV. Episodes of Goosebumps, episodes of Kung Fu, The Legend Continues. Did some sci-fi show called Lost Girl, another one called Dark Matter. Still doing some stuff, some movies, some TV movies. The other guy, Paul Ziller, lots of TV movies. Did you ever see his first movie he ever did you ever see the movie Pledge Night? It's like a horror
I
movie.
don't believe so. It sounds like half familiar, but also not familiar, if that makes sense.
It sounded very familiar to me too, and I looked it up and I was like, I don't know if I've seen this or not. And all the countless slasher movies I've seen in my life. After that, though, he made a movie with Gary Busey in it, Breaking Point. Him and Kim Cattrall. Never seen that one.
I neither, but Gary Busey always intrigues me.
Have you ever seen, I may do this one for a future episode. Have you ever seen Eye of the Tiger?
I have the MGM DVD and the Shop Factory DVD. That is one of my favorite 80s movies, actually.
Oh my god, I love that movie. I love the part when if you haven't seen it, go watch it, but this isn't really ruining anything. But when the biker gang comes and delivers his wife's coffin to his front door.
Oh, that's great. And I like when he's interrogating the guy and he shoves the dynamite up his ass and lights it on fire.
My other favorite is Yaphet Kotto is also in the movie when he flies that biplane towards the end through all those bad guys and he just yells, "I love this shit," and starts throwing dynamite out of it.
I say he threw like dynamite and grenades because he doesn't have any bombs because it's a biplane.
It is one of the craziest fucking movies. I love it.
Yeah, Busey gets an armored truck that shoots rockets and everything.
That movie is like the biggest ripoff of Rambo.
Oh, yeah, it's better though.
Like the first Rambo, not Rambo 2 or 3. Vet comes back to town. Everything goes wrong. It's so weird. And then the guy who he rides out of jail with is like the biggest ripoff of Al Pacino and Scarface I've ever seen in a movie.
And he was a Cuban drug lord.
Yeah, it's like he dressed exactly like Al Pacino in that movie. Exactly. And he does the same voice and everything. And I swear to God, says even borderline some of the same lines.
And the funny thing is and Busey was a star back then. That's a theatrical film, and no one knows what the hell it is.
You know, he was in a lot of big movies. I mean, Predator 2.
Oh, yeah. Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. I mean, all
Point
sorts
Break.
of stuff. And then I guess went crazy.
Big time.
So only other things I have Paul Ziller directed that I have on here, because there's like a lot of credits. Did you ever see 2003 Firefight with Stephen Baldwin? Was a direct-to-video one?
Missed that one.
I don't blame you. And then a movie, he went on to like sci-fi movies. I got Beyond Loch Ness, Stonehenge Apocalypse. Now he directs all the episodes of a show called Untold Stories of the ER, which I have never heard of.
My wife watches it. It's on one of those Learning Channel things. They reenact like weird medical cases, and it's like beyond soap opera quality acting, so it's kind of funny.
Well, he made this movie.
There's another one called Sex Brought Me to the ER, which is even funnier.
The guy who wrote this movie, nothing much else. Only other ones I had that were worth mentioning. He's got like 8 credits total. 1998, Riddler's Moon, which had Corbin Burnson in it. And then 1998, Dead End, which had Eric Roberts in it. Other than that, nothing you've heard of. So we go to the cast. We already talked about Billy Blanks, but we have not mentioned his co-star in this, Roddy Piper.
The man.
I remember Roddy Piper the only time I watched wrestling was as a kid, and I remember WrestleMania 10, I think it was, when he faced Bret the Hitman Hart. I think that was it, or maybe it was
that
later.
Wasn't 10. That was earlier. I think that was 7 or 8.
Oh, maybe 8. Yeah, that was when I was into wrestling, and I remember it was like the first time I'd seen a whole bunch of blood in a match.
He was my hero when I was a little kid, because he was the bad guy and then the good guy switched when they lived. Because I was a little kid when that was all being going on, and I wanted to be just like him. He's a mouthy guy. You go back and watch it now, and you can see he's clearly coked up during all that. But yeah, to me, he was just the man.
And I think most people know him. If they don't know wrestling, I think almost everybody that probably listens to this podcast has seen 1988 They Live, which I'd say is his first big role in a movie, although he's in a ton of movies. And then the same year did Hell Comes to Frogtown, which...
Hell Comes to Frogtown is like a really fun movie to talk about, and the premise is so good. But if you actually watch the movie, it's really awful.
Oh, it's terrible.
Except for when he eye pokes the frog at the end. That's like worth the price of the disc.
But I always think too, what do you think of They Live?
Oh, I love They Live.
I think They Live is like the greatest idea for a movie, and then the movie itself I was so disappointed in.
I saw it in the theater, and when I saw the commercials, I was a little kid, and probably 11 or 12. And I remember I saw the commercial and I was just like, we have to go see this movie. It's Roddy Piper. I didn't know what the fuck it was, but we went, and I always thought it was cool. I think it just had it had slow points in the beginning. I have no problem admitting that, but one of the greatest fight scenes in a movie.
Quite possibly the longest.
Yeah, I mean, I dig the movie. I'm a huge fan of it, but I get why if you didn't. It's kind of one of those movies. If you saw it when it came out and you grew up with it, you'll still like it. If you're just watching it fresh, like recently, it's probably not going to be as entertaining for you.
Yeah, the first time I saw it was in college, actually, and I rented it and was just like so disappointed. I was like, how the hell could this be not great? I mean, it has Roddy Piper in it. It has a couple of the most iconic lines, I would say, in history, because as a kid, I grew up playing Duke Nukem, and he quotes They Live in that game with the I'm all out of bubblegum line. But I was just, I don't know, I haven't seen it since then, but I remember just being kind of disappointed by it.
Yeah, I have the Region 2 DVD because it had the commentary, and then when Shout Factory took all that and made the Blu-ray, I got that, and then I have a Laserdisc of it too.
Well, I might have to revisit it. I'll check it out.
It's really good. It's a sci-fi drama more so than an action movie.
Well, I always think with John Carpenter, I'm kind of like that with all his movies. I think great ideas for movies, but not always the best movies.
No, a lot of his movies, and I like Carpenter. I think his best movie's Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Yeah, underrated Halloween for sure.
Even if you go back and watch Halloween, it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made. But when you really go back and watch it, it's pretty fucking boring.
Yeah, the first Halloween, I think that the highlight is number 3, actually. And it's the only one without Michael Myers.
I didn't hate the Rob Zombie remake.
Yeah, I was kind of indifferent. I haven't seen any of the Rob Zombie movies in years. Again, those were ones I was watching in college. But I remember just being kind of disappointed by House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects.
I think they all start out very strong and they look really good aesthetically, but they all just kind of fall apart like toward the end.
I think it's like one of his music videos, Always looks great, entertaining, got good action and gore, but when it comes to everything else, yeah. So let's get into the rest of the cast before we get in this movie here. Bobby Phillips, who plays Helen.
She's cute. Whoever she was, she's really cute, I thought.
So she was in TC 2000.
Oh, yeah, she was the android.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason they brought her back for this movie. Apparently,
she's hot.
Very successful overseas. And then she was in a movie I've never seen called Hail Caesar, 1994, with Anthony Michael Hall. You ever seen that one?
Missed that one, too. She
was in, and this one I did not know, and I've seen this movie countless times. She's in Showgirls, but I don't remember her.
That's my wife's favorite movie. No joke.
I love Paul Verhoeven movies, even Showgirls, because I think it's just such a great misfire of a movie.
Is she the little stripper that ends up going with the black dude that's with whatever her name is, Jessie from Saved by the Bell?
Oh no, oh god, that's Rena Riffle, I believe her name is, and she's
in the pseudo sequel.
Yeah, she directed that movie.
Pennies from Heaven.
Yeah, she made that movie herself.
Nice 2.5 hour film.
Yeah, I would not watch that. If there's no Paul Verhoeven or Joe Esterhaus involved, I'm not going to watch it. That was just Showgirls is a special case of just the perfect disaster, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it in the theater opening night. It was packed because the whole fascination. Let's see the girl from Saved by the Bell nude. And I think everybody in the world went Friday night, because by Sunday it was considered a flop.
I think, the thing about Showgirls is it is the least sexual movie I've ever seen. Like, it tries so hard to be titillating, and it is not at all. It's one of the most disturbingly weird movies I've ever seen.
But be honest, had he cast Tiffany Amber Thiessen in that role, would you be doing a podcast, or would you, like me, be on your 98th DVD because it's all worn out and not having a job or anything?
I think it would have been a much different movie.
Oh yeah.
And the only other thing I have here for her is in 1996 she was in an episode of X-Files, and then she made a TV movie series called Chameleon, which I'd never heard of, but they made 3 of them. And then currently is still acting. Like, she's got like a dozen things in production right now. So she's still out there doing stuff. And she wasn't bad in the movie. Her character's insane, but...
Small part.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that.
The part that sort of disappears.
So the other guy... Okay, so this guy, I did not know his name throughout the whole movie, and you'll see in my notes when I get to it, is Matt Berman, who plays Chaka.
That's the cheap Judd Nelson, New Jack City looking henchman, right?
Yeah, I just wrote down, because I didn't even know he had a name until almost all the way through the movie. I just wrote him down as Boss Man, because I thought...
They didn't give it till the very end of the film, or toward the end when Piper arrested him.
Yeah, the first time I have his name mentioned is when Helen just calls him Chaka for some reason. I'm like, wait, that's his name? And how the hell does she know his name?
And how does he look like a Chaka?
I thought I'd misheard it. Like, I wrote it down as either Chaka or chocolate. I couldn't understand what she was saying, so.
The most intimidating bad guy muscle I think I've ever seen.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because he does have over 101 acting credits, but has over 200 credits for stunt work.
Wow.
And the movies he does stunt work for, huge. So I have just a couple. I mean, there's 200, and he's been working well since the 80s in stunt work. But in the 2000s, I have quite a few credits here. You have American Psycho, X-Men, Exit Wounds, Land of the Dead, Shoot 'Em Up, and then recently he was in did stunt work for the movie Pompeii, which nobody saw, and then Brick Mansions, which was that Luke Besson, Paul Walker.
I actually liked Brick. I was a big fan of the D13 films, and I actually thought Brick Mansions was a fine American remake.
I have not seen that one. I mean, it was still made by Luke Besson, so
I dug it.
But yeah, he did the stunt work in that. So, and he does like a ton of stunt driving too. I was really surprised that he was in that much stuff.
Well, yeah, because like I said, he looks kind of like a pudgy the way Judd Nelson looked in New Jack City. I mean, he looks like a fucking nerd.
But he's the guy. He's like the only guy in this movie, other than Roddy Piper, that's actually doing real physical stuff, I'd say.
And he's actually killing people.
Yeah. So Nigel Bennett plays Kasajan. Believe it or not, huge stage actor in Britain before he moved to Canada in 1986. Tons of film work. But I'd say most notable roles, I just have a few written down, was he was in a movie co-starring with Gene Hackman in 1990 called Narrow Margin that I've never heard of. He was in Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt.
Never seen it.
Never seen it either. Murder at 1600 with Wesley Snipes. He was in that movie.
Never seen it.
And then The Skulls, which I've also never seen, in 2000.
That I've seen. That's the one with Paul Walker, isn't it? And
I think he's in that, yeah.
Dawson's Creek, yeah.
And
stupid fucking movie. I can't remember what he was in it.
Well, he's still alive and working, does mostly TV now, but I thought, great bad guy.
Oh, the scene where he's getting acupuncture to quit smoking is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I thought he's like the stereotypical like action movie bad guy. Does it real well, I think.
Oh yeah, I thought whoever cast this movie, they did a really good job.
Yeah, you're right. The casting in this movie, other than maybe, Billy Blanks' acting, great. Last guy I have is Damon D'Oliveira, who plays Gantry, who is Billy Blanks' sister's boyfriend. I didn't even know he had a name.
I didn't either.
Only thing I see that I thought was he was in the movie Short Circuit 2.
Never saw it. I never saw Short Circuit, to be honest with you.
I love those movies when I was a kid. I'm sure if I watched them now, they're just terrible.
Isn't Mahoney in them?
Who is it, Steve Guttenberg?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are Goot movies, yeah.
I like Mahoney. Mahoney's very popular on our Facebook page.
Well, hey, you guys should do Short Circuit. Maybe you'll hate it.
I think we're going to do Police Academy because we both bought the Region 2 Blu-ray box set.
Oh, nice. All right, so before we get into it, let's take a listen to the trailer.
A drug bust goes bad.
You want to be dead?
A cop is brutally executed.
Wallace!
Now his partner wants revenge.
It was my sting, my responsibility, and he was my partner. And the animal that did this to Wallace, he's mine too.
But there's one man in his way.
All right, tough guy. You want to fight, huh? Come on.
An ex-Special Forces hero turned vigilante who's out to protect his sister from the same murderous drug lord.
What do you know about this man? He's her brother. Find him. Find her. Kill them.
Now, these two rebels are face to face.
Man, they got my sister, they're gonna kill her! So you gonna start a war? Yeah. What would you do?
They're joining forces, and the battle's about to begin. Billy Blanks, Roddy Piper, Bobby Phillips, Matt Berman, Nigel Bennett. Back in action.
Great 90s trailer, by the way. Love that one.
You gotta love those voiceovers.
Yeah, it's like every direct-to-video action movie from the 90s must have hired the same guy.
Some of them you get to actually have profanity in the trailers too. That's what's really good.
You know what's funny about the trailer, though, is like any of Roddy Piper's lines from the trailer, it's just him screaming.
It's basically all he did in the movie, though, if you think about it. The one that, did you ever see, I don't know if I mentioned this before, did you ever see Mortal Kombat?
Immortal Kombat?
Yeah.
No, I have not seen that one.
As Piper, Sonny Chiba, and Zeus have to stop Meg Foster's army of serial killer zombies.
Wow. You blew my mind with the pairing of Sonny Chiba and Roddy Piper.
Oh, and they're excellent together. I mean, it's a nice hard R, violent. You got a rape scene and everything in it. They work together really, really well, actually.
I think Piper's best work is when they pair him with somebody else.
Yeah, he needs someone to play off of, so to speak.
Because kind of like Billy Blanks, his acting ability is, I would say, not great.
No, he needs to be. He's another one. You got to pair him with somebody.
So this movie starts with a funeral procession. And we get that wonderful stock music from the 90s playing over it so fucking loud. And I'm playing it below us right now. It's I don't even know what the hell you would call the instrument, but you can tell this is made on a keyboard, and it's like, I don't know, some sort of like trumpet sound effect or something, but
it's almost like like if you called it like a basketball highlight 6 noise synthesizer from slowed down.
It's so like terrible, and I'm sure you've seen Troll 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that whole movie is just filled with that.
This is fun to watch with your soundbar, though, because you can't hear anything. You just hear that boom, boom, like that. It's like you can't hear any dialogue.
I had to watch this movie with headphones on, and it was fucking terrible. So we cut in, and there's some girl rubbing up on the driver of the hearse, and he likes it. But we go to the graveyard, and we see Roddy Piper and this mustached guy. They're waiting somewhere. He smiles as he sees this car roll up, and he says,
Right on time.
Then we get to see who I just wrote down as Boss Guy, but his name is Chaka.
Just picture Judd Nelson the way he looked in New Jack City, only pudgy with glasses.
He's got like the terrible 90s goatee, those round glasses, which he never takes off.
On this movie straight, especially when you look at Billy Blanks' god-awful wardrobe. I mean, because I dress like that. Yes, that's straight up This is straight up 90s hip-hop gangster.
Yeah, this is like a white man can't jump type.
Yeah, it's bad.
So the boss guy and these hench guys, they pull out a coffin. And he says, if they aren't here in 5, we split. A cab pulls up, and Billy Blanks gets out. And I wrote, apparently nobody noticed him, even though he parked directly in front of all of them.
Yeah, he's and I'll mention it later, the worst undercover guy ever.
I have a lot of problems with both Billy Blanks and Roddy Piper in this movie in terms of their character decisions, because we'll get into it, but they're definitely not innocent in all of this.
Oh, no.
So then this van pulls up and sits away from all these bad guys. The boss says, what are they waiting for? And his lackey, I just wrote down this guy's name is Lackey, but apparently his name is Gantry. It just says, maybe they're as nervous as you are. And do you remember what he says to him?
And I just say, fuck you.
He says,
maybe they're as nervous as you are.
Don't tell me I'm nervous. Been doing this since before you learned how to jerk off.
What's that?
Okay. It's Piper that tells him to go fuck you, and he gives him the money. And Piper's he's in the van with the other guy, and he's like, let's just wait longer, let's make him sweat.
And then the boss gets all mad about it, and he has one of the guys that's with him take off his jacket and then just start waving it in the air to signal the van, and it's like, I think they can see you.
Yeah, all he's got to do is like make the motion, like, come on.
So Roddy looks in the back of the van, and he asks the boys if they're ready, and then they all pump shotguns, and shit is about to go down. And then the next thing we see is Billy Blank sneaks up behind one of the guys and snaps his neck. And we would still wonder at this point who the hell all these people are and what is going on. Obviously, Billy Blanks doesn't belong there, but we have no idea what's happening at this point.
No, and he's just killing people.
Yeah, he goes up and straight up snaps a guy's neck, which I got a lot of issues with.
I know, the man's like a murderer. He kills a lot of people in this.
Yeah, and we'll deal with the repercussions or non-repercussions of his murder spree. Roddy and the boss, so they finally get this deal going. I guess you can just call him Frank, because Roddy Piper's character's name is Frank. I think it's funny because Billy Blanks' character's name is just Billy. He doesn't even have a last name. It's just Billy.
Just Billy.
And I thought they should have called Roddy Piper just Roddy. I thought it would have been great.
That would have been funny, actually.
They're doing their drug deal, and then Billy sneaks up at the hearse, caught by a guard, starts kicking his ass, and then goes inside of it. We cut back to the drug deal, and Roddy's asking where the product is, the boss is asking where the money is, but then they open a coffin, which apparently has an actual dead guy in it, and they pull out a pillow from behind his head, and they tell him the drugs are in there.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, they're not smuggling coffins, they're smuggling it in the pillow of the dead person on the coffin. I mean, that's really clever.
If I was Roddy Piper, I would have been like, yeah, no thanks. I don't know.
Because that's where he gives him the money, and he's like, open it, and Piper just looks at him, fuck you.
Yeah. And this is when we get the first line also of his partner, Roddy's partner. I think his name is Wallace, that's it. All his lines are so clearly ADR'd, and I'm going to play some of them here, but they are just delivered like terribly. Like I guess the guy must have been that bad, or he must have just not spoke English or something, because I have no idea why they ADR'd it, and the ADRs are worse than it couldn't be any worse.
Well, there's some Steven Seagal movies that are mostly ADR, and they're pretty bad.
But he says in his 80-yard line,
how long are we going to keep dancing like this?
And Chaka just goes,
yeah, well, the fucking dance is over.
He raises his hands in the air, snaps his fingers, and then shit goes down. Everybody's pulling out guns. At the same time, Billy sneaks into this hearse, and apparently he knows the girl that was rumming up on the driver, but she doesn't want to leave, and he tries to take her. We don't know what's going on yet. Roddy puts down the case, and he tells Chaka to go look at it, and then for some reason Chaka pulls out a knife, and he says this line that's going to be repeated multiple times in the movie is, you want to die? This is the chance of a lifetime, pal.
You want to be dead? Here's the chance of a lifetime, pal.
He's got the knife by Piper's balls.
Yeah, it's very odd. And so then we cut back to Billy, and he's caught by a guy, grabs him, and then he's the reason. This guy starts firing a gun, and then all hell breaks loose, and we get the big gunfight.
Oh, and it's a good one, too. I mean, they're chowing down fucking tombstones and everything.
Yeah, it is. I would say the action movies and the fight scenes in this movie are great. They definitely spent most of their time focusing on those. But I'd like to point out that this is Billy Blanks' character's fault.
Oh, 100%.
If he didn't fucking show up, none of this whole movie would have happened. Because,
no, it would have been a clean bust.
So he starts this gunfight. All hell breaks loose. I love this part Roddy Piper is behind a tombstone, and he yells at his partner. He goes, "Go to the van, I'll cover you."
Go to the van, I'll cover you!
His partner runs out and then is immediately shot by a guy.
Oh, he gets riddled.
So, again, this is Roddy Piper's fault. He didn't do it. He didn't cover him at all.
So he didn't cover him. And then he's telling him, he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "Run to the van. They're going to know he's coming."
I was like, okay, so the two main characters, they're both responsible for everything that just goes down. That basically is the whole reason for the whole movie. It's their fault. Mm-hmm. It's Billy's fault the whole gunfight started, and it's Roddy's fault his partner died. Because if you're going to tell a guy, "I'll cover you," maybe you should start firing your gun instead of just yelling, "Go to the van."
Or make like a motion like in baseball or something. You like your eyes like run to the van. Don't announce it.
But it's great how they cut it, because he goes, "Go to the van, I'll cover you." And then we get this slow motion shot of a guy with a Uzi coming from behind a tombstone and then just shooting his partner up.
Poor Wallace.
Roddy screams, "Wallace! Wallace!" And then Chaka runs up and just knifes him dead.
Yeah, and that kind of made no sense here. And he's like looking at Piper the whole time. Piper's not like shooting him or anything. Yeah,
you're you know what? I never thought of that.
He's just like watching this guy gut his partner.
You know what? I didn't even think of that, but you're right. So he has a clear shot at him.
Oh yeah, they're like a couple feet away.
He stands there and just watches him. And by the way, he knifes him, like sticks a knife in his throat and like pulls it down his body and everything. Like it's a real gruesome knifing, and he does nothing about it.
He could have thrown his gun at him and hit him.
And then, so everybody starts running. Roddy's all upset about it, even though he doesn't do shit. Okay, so everybody starts running, including Billy and this girl he found in this limo, hearse, what call you? A SWAT van shows up. We get more of a gunfight where they fight the rest of these guys. A few of the guys, including Chaka, run off and carjack some grieving people that were apparently visiting the cemetery. The SWAT kill the remaining guys. Roddy walks up, surveys his partner, and just says, "Slaughtered, just so I could watch."
Slaughtered. Just so I could watch.
And again, he didn't have to watch.
He didn't have to watch. And yet the funny thing is all the cops are coming. Billy gets away in a big yellow taxi.
Which apparently nobody ever saw him drive up. Nobody saw him drive away.
And he drives the yellow cab through a good chunk of the beginning of the movie.
So we go into the bad guy's car. I love this part. It's Chaka, the lackey guy, and some random dude who's just bleeding all over the back seat. And he just yells something about, like, "I got the dope, but I need to go to the hospital." And Chaka just tells him, "No, we're going to the boat."
I gotta get to a hospital. I'm not gonna make it.
No! We're going to the boat!
We go back to the cab. Yeah, Billy's driving away with this girl. She's mad he took her out of there, and then we learn it's his sister.
Well, if he, like you said, if he wouldn't have came there, none of that would have ever happened.
No, he's the whole reason this goes bad. I mean, he's partly responsible for why Roddy Piper's partner dies, but that's mostly on Roddy.
That's mostly on Roddy, yeah.
This is one of those strange movies where the main characters make a horrible decision in the first 5 minutes that they pretend is everybody else's fault. It's also Billy's fault. Like, the whole thing is Billy's fault, including putting his own sister in danger.
Yeah, because they think she's a snitch now because she wasn't there with him because he dragged her out, in the middle of a gunfight. Now they think, okay, it's this guy's girlfriend that snitched on us.
Yeah, and I have some theories about her and Billy. Well, mostly Billy, that I can't wait to get into. But we go to this boat where I guess we were headed with these bad guys. And the guy who was bleeding out, lying on a bed now, still bleeding out. And he goes, "It hurts real bad."
It hurts real bad.
And the one guy who I just wrote down as lackey just says, "Quit your whining."
It hurts real bad. Just quit your whining.
And the guy really is bleeding out. Like he's got a buckshot in him from a shotgun.
And it's like his whole stomach is just covered in blood. And he's getting blood all over the bed now. And I can't even believe they brought him inside.
He shouldn't, in all honesty, he should have bled out on the ride over. He should be dead.
But they use him to just say somebody must have known about the setup. It must have been your girlfriend, and because she ran away before it all started. The lackey guy gets all pissed off about this, doesn't believe it. Then the bleeding guy goes on more about how he needs a doctor and he's not going to make it. And then finally, Chaka just comes in and says, "No kidding," takes out a gun and just ends it.
And he put him out of his misery.
And this is the weird thing is the other guy, the lackey guy, the boyfriend, he looks surprised about it. And I'm like, well, you were going to have to do it anyways. I mean, he wasn't going to make it.
Obviously, weren't taking the guy to a hospital.
Like, he looks shocked that he shot him. And it's like, well, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming he's been in more drug deals than this. I'm assuming they've had to kill people before. How could you possibly be surprised about this?
Exactly.
And then we go to Billy's house. His sister tries to call her boyfriend, but Billy tells her forget about him. And she does, because then she just goes over and turns on the TV. So she's like, fuck it.
And like, they never really said, was she with the guy because she loved him? Was she hooked on drugs? You know, well, they never really explained. I just think she's a dumb bitch.
When she complains about having to live like a rat in a hole, and then Billy says something about how she could get a job and they can get a better apartment. And I had a couple of things. Is like, first of all, the apartment they live in is really nice.
Actually, you know what? For cab driver salary, it really was.
Yeah, it's damn nice. Like, this is like what would they would call like a loft in modern times. You know,
Yeah.
it's got multiple rooms. It's all decorated nice and everything. But then I also wrote like, okay, wait a second. She can get a job and they live together. Like, how old are they?
Yeah, they're clearly like in their 30s, upper 30s.
And his sister's just living with them?
Yeah.
I thought that was very odd, but it gets odder. So, and I wrote at this point, I think Billy likes his sister a little too much.
Clearly. Yes, he does.
He's a little too overprotective of her, and maybe not just protective. Maybe there's something else going on here.
Because they never really explain, like, oh, well, our parents beat us and we're all we had or anything like that. It's just like,
all I have is he says something about the inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
So their parents are dead, and apparently they both inherited money, and then just decided like, oh, well, let's go get an apartment together.
They couldn't have got that much money. He's driving a yellow cab. Actually, they better hope they save their inheritance because this guy never picks up one fucking fare in the movie.
So she goes on saying how her boyfriend's a good guy, and then Billy says, well, if he's so good, he would have brought you a drug deal. And I was like, yeah, well, no shit. She gets mad and then goes on. Yeah, she goes on about how he used to be a special forces guy in the army, and now he drives a cab. And then I wrote, yeah, he seems to be doing pretty well for a cab driver.
Well, he's like a complete narcissist. If you look at the fucking bookshelf, it's like pictures of him.
Yeah, because what keeps seeing is he has this picture of himself in his special uniform, special forces thing.
Well, if you look though, is that a picture? Is that like an oil painting somebody did of him? Like, look real close. It almost looks like it's a painting somebody made.
Oh my god! If that was an oil painting, I would have loved to seen the scene where he commissioned that.
Well, and Billy also does not like to wear shirts.
Oh God, never.
Ever.
I would say maybe this is the only time, like in the graveyard, I think is the only time he has a full shirt on.
And even then, the minute he gets back to the apartment, he's stripping down.
Oh, he's always with his shirt off, especially around his sister. He wants her to look at him, so.
Or he's wearing a vest with no shirt.
Yeah. So we go to a TV report that she's watching on TV about the shooting. And I wrote, they seem to have a lot of footage and really, like, they have like full-on staged B-roll shots of like cops picking up bullets and all this. And his sister, during the report, his sister runs off and Billy's all bummed. I wrote, just let her go, man. I mean, why?
She was so annoying.
But like, why does he even care? It's like, if she really is in her late 20s or early 30s, like, fucking let her live her life. If that's what she wants to do, man, just fucking let her go.
And she runs away every time he gets her. He needed to be like Samuel Jackson. He needed a black snake moan her ass and tie her up to fucking the furnace.
I think he's one step away from doing that in this movie. I really think that.
And she gets far. If you notice, like, he's like, Tara! And he runs down the steps and she's like gone. It's like she didn't steal his cab or anything, but he's just like, his acting's bad. Even when he screams her name, which basically that's what he does a lot. Tara.
One of the only lines he'll deliver. And also, the name Tara, I can't wait to bring up how many times we'll get to see the name Tara in this movie.
Oh, God, yes, that was ridiculous.
But we won't spoil that yet. So we go back to the graveyard, and we're with this TV report, and that's where we first meet Helen, who's going to be a main character in this movie. We see something where she fights with this camera guy. We think he might be a main character, but no, we'll never see him again. But we find out she's like very good friends with Roddy Piper, or Frank.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird relationship, though.
I have a lot of problems with this relationship and with her job. I can't wait to get into some of this stuff.
Well, it's like they're not friends, but yet I don't know, they might just be fuck buddies or something.
They're definitely fuck buddies, but... Well, she likes Roddy Piper, but I don't know if he really likes her. I don't know what he thinks of her, but I don't know. He doesn't have too much dimension. So.
He has zero dimension. Maybe he's thinking about putting the moves on Wallace's widow.
Well, he goes, okay, so she says something about how she's sorry about Wallace, wants to know what happened. We learn they have a history together. Roddy's upset about his partner dying, and she just offers him a drive back. At this point, we don't get too much about their relationship. But I thought it was weird how this is the first time we see this, where apparently the cops are just fine with a news crew walking onto an active crime scene.
Oh, yeah.
And not only walking on...
they're contaminating it.
Not only walking onto it, they're like picking up bullets. They're doing all sorts of shit.
Well, I guess once again, Piper was the lead detective on the case. See, fucked that up too. He let him contaminate the evidence.
Oh, he's a terrible
He's
detective.
a rotten cop.
So we go to this mansion, and we see Chaka and the lackey. The boyfriend. I'll just call him boyfriend from now on. So Chaka and the boyfriend, they're waiting in the living room with the drugs and the money. They get called into Kasajan's office, and this is the first time we get to see Kasajan, who probably the only good performance in this movie is this guy. He's great. And he basically tells them, find his lady friend and kill her. And that's all we get mostly from this scene. But he doesn't seem to be too happy that they brought back both the drugs and the money. I think win-win.
I was going to say, he should be happy.
He's like, all right, well, you got away from that drug bust. You got the money, you got the drugs. Everything's great. Just go kill that girl.
Yeah, because of Billy, they think she's a snitch.
Yeah. So we go to this bar, and Roddy and Helen are there drinking. And he says something about that being Kasajan's place, which I thought was odd because he's not there to get information or anything. He's just there to drink. So apparently he's fine with giving Kasajan his money.
Kasajan owns many operations, we find out as this movie goes on. He must own half of this, what do you call it, this fucking strip of businesses.
Yeah, because he owns multiple bars, some other places I can't wait to get to.
Auto shops, everything.
He pretty much runs the town, so I guess you don't have many choices in giving your money to Kasajan. But it's also weird that it's well, if he owns this much stuff, why is he even in drugs? At that point, you think he'd be doing pretty well for himself.
Well, what makes no sense is Billy's going to the bar because his sister's there. If Kasajan just put a hit out on this bitch, if she's in his establishment, wouldn't they know?
Exactly. Okay, so that's the next thing. So, okay, we go from Frank and Helen, where she tells him he should stop by later. So this is the first time we find out they're a little still romantically involved. Then you're right. We see Billy walk in, and we see Tara is there with two guys. And you're right. If this is Kasajan's place, don't you think they would know immediately? Shit, we better call him.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
And why is she so fucking stupid to walk into one of his places?
And she's all chummed up next to these two guys. What about her real boyfriend?
Exactly. Who are these guys?
Was she like a junkie or something? That's what I'm wondering, if they cut a part of this out.
Maybe. Although she definitely doesn't look like a junkie. She looks too well-dressed and too, I guess, well-adjusted to be a part of this world.
She's just a dumb bitch. There's no other way to say it.
So Billy walks in. He doesn't really say anything. He just starts kicking the other guy's asses. He walks over and he's like, come on, Tara, let's go.
Yeah, the guy's like, wait, stop. Yeah, and he just boots him right over the fucking railing.
And I love this. We cut over to Roddy Piper, and Helen goes, "Are you going to do anything?" And he goes, "Yeah, have another drink." So at this point, he doesn't even give a shit.
Frank, aren't you going to do anything?
Yeah. Have me another drink.
Billy tries to leave the bar, and then finally Roddy's like, well, I got to do some sort of police work. Pulls out a gun and tells him, you better stop, I'm a cop. Then Billy pushes him out of the way and tells his sister to run, and she goes out of there. Then we get the first thing of this being Roddy Piper, clotheslines Billy to the ground, says the line, "I hate that karate shit."
Hate that karate shit. You gotta love Piper that he incorporates, especially later in the movie, a lot of wrestling moves in his fights.
That's what makes this movie so great, is that you have both wrestling and whatever the hell Billy Blanks is doing.
Some hybrid of kickboxing.
Yeah. But you got a little bit for everybody. We see a fight between him and Billy Blanks. Then a cop comes in, and instead of asking what's going on or finding out about it, he tries to arrest Roddy Piper.
Yeah, he doesn't grab the, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be stereotypical, don't grab the black thug looking guy.
He grabs
grab the white dude.
He like throws him onto a table, and he's like, all right, here we go. And he's like, I'm a cop. And his response is, oh, sorry.
And have fun filling out the paperwork.
Enjoy the paperwork.
We know what would happen if Bronson walked into the bar. I don't think Billy would have made it out alive if Bronson.
No, if Bronson would have hit one of them sweet jump kicks on him and knocked him through like 8 things and just shot him.
Yeah, you would have heard, he's got a gun. And then he just starts shooting.
When Bronson, I could see him in this movie. He didn't like them Asian people. He probably wouldn't like those brothers either in this movie.
Well, we know he didn't in Kinjite when he threw that guy off a balcony for no reason other than just, fuck it.
Yeah. That's Bronson.
Yeah, and I told you, we were talking earlier, I just watched Death Wish, the first Death Wish, and it should just be called like Bronson versus Black People in that movie, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, he goes after all the minorities in his films.
In that movie, the first guy he kills is a white guy, and then everybody else is black. And like he lures him in too, which is the worst part about it.
Yeah, he's like a really creepy vigilante. Yeah, he actually tricks people into letting them get killed.
Like he goes into black neighborhoods in that movie and then starts flashing cash around like, who wants it? It's so bad.
It is. But see, back then you don't think of those things.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, the funniest part about that, well, it's not funny, but the craziest part is that the people who rape his wife and kill his wife and rape his daughter are all white guys.
Yeah, but he racial profiles and goes after all black people.
It's like that. And by the way, he never looks for the people that did that to his wife and daughter.
No, he just starts killing random criminals that he entices into robbing him.
So it was like the police were like, yeah, 3 white guys came in. He said, what's that, 3 black guys?
Yeah. At least in Death Wish 2, he just kept, I don't know what it looked like. I got hit in the head. That way he didn't give any information.
You know, did you notice, by the way, in Death Wish, one of the guys who rapes his daughter is Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah, and then Larry Fishburne raped her in part 2. And then Larry Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum did Deep Cover together.
Wow. They must have just been, oh yeah, remember you in Death Wish? That was great. So we get back to this movie. We go to Billy's house after the bar fight. And then these 2 twins show up. And these guys...
Oh, they're wearing Zuba pants.
Okay, so to explain this, like you have to watch the movie to understand how crazy these guys look, but both have like long curly hair mullets, mustaches, blue leotards, and like puffy zebra pants.
Yeah, those are those Zubaz workout pants.
Yeah, they
Very
look
comfortable.
They look insane.
Once again, why would you send 2 killers in bright zebra pants?
And twins, by the way, which I thought was the best part. Like either they were twins or they were such good friends they just copied each other's style.
Well, then Billy runs out in his underwear.
Yeah, that's so. They all look ridiculous. Yeah, he kicks their ass in his underwear, and again, he throws a guy out the window. So
yeah, he could not just subdue him or knock him out. Yeah, he blatantly throws the guy, 10 stories up.
So now he's murdered 2 people already.
Oh, he's on more than 2. He killed that guy in the beginning.
Wait, who else did he murder? So, he murders both of these guys. You're right. So now we're at 3.
Snapped that guy's neck. Yeah, so we're at 3.
Well, I love this part. So he throws one guy out the window, and there's another guy he's murdered in his own house. His sister's just crying on the floor. And this is when
she's got a hit out on her.
This is when I broke down and said, this is all Billy's fault. If he never pulled her out of that drug deal, then none of this would have happened. In fact, Billy's the whole reason that Frank's partner is dead and everyone's dead. He's the reason that everything has happened.
And she even keeps telling him that, too.
Yeah, okay, so...
she's the voice of... She's a dumb bitch, but she's the voice of reason.
She even says it. She's like, this is your fault.
Well, they'd rather than call the cops and be like, look, self-defense. This guy's got a hit on my sister.
No.
He just grabs his shit and they run to some guy's boiler room.
Well, before that, though, we have a scene where he pulls Tara over to the dead guy in their apartment. And he shoves her face down like to the guy and he goes, look at him. Friend of yours, huh? Look at him.
Friends of yours? Look at him! You look at him. Are these the people you hang out with?
It's like, man, she's already freaked out. She knows what the fuck you just did.
I mean, because of him, he not only is he traumatized her, he's got a mob hit on her.
And I'm playing this part, by the way, because this is some of the best acting. And by best, I mean worst, that Billy delivers in this movie.
Especially when Billy tries to yell and be dramatic. It's so bad.
So the next scene is just Billy's house, but it's the next day. And Frank shows up. So Roddy Piper shows up on the scene, and we just see the outline of the chalk outline of a guy that he threw out the window. But I love this first, before you get into that, I was bummed they didn't have the outline of the guy's hair. Like, it was just,
awesome. Yeah, like draw the curly mullet around it.
But I love this so Roddy bends down to look at it, and some guy walks up and he goes, "You recognize these guys?"
Back with the reporters, can I get a comment? And he's like, yeah, 2 less scumbags I gotta deal with.
I'm assuming the guys are at the morgue by now, but apparently Frank could tell by the chalk outline that they're Kasajan's guys.
Obviously. Well, and Piper's the only one, too, that picks up the oil painting picture of Billy Blanks.
Yeah, okay, so he goes inside, and then immediately the news crew shows up, because apparently Helen just follows him wherever he goes. And again, now this is a full active crime scene, and they start filming their news report.
But here's what makes even less sense. They're like, they don't know who did this, whoever lived here left. Didn't he have to give a name or anything to the landlord?
No. But this is okay. So this is crazy. As you said, he picks up that oil painting picture, and then he looks at it, and I go, "Well, somehow he doesn't put 2 and 2 together. That's the guy he just saw at the bar."
Yeah, at a bar. Yeah.
Not only just saw him, was in a fight with him. He doesn't recognize it at all. He just picks up the picture, just like, huh.
Yeah, and then they see that he was like a special forces because he has the flag hanging up.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the strategically placed special forces flag that Billy keeps on his wall. You're right that his apartment is just kind of like a monument to himself.
Yeah, they should have been like, they must have left. They packed everything except the shirts.
I'm surprised he didn't take the picture with them.
That was a nice picture.
Yeah, and he commissioned it, so.
Yeah.
Then we have this part where Helen asked Frank to do an interview on camera, and he keeps asking, why would he do this to him? And I said, well, you're not obligated to give an interview. Just don't do it. And also...
Yeah, no comment.
Tell the press to leave. Like, this is still a crime scene.
Yeah, you're stepping on all this glass that we could be getting DNA off of.
I would love to see on my local LA news is if the reporters would just go into the crime scenes and just start reporting it. It reminds me, did you ever see that Nightcrawler movie?
No, I know what you're talking about, but no, I've never seen it.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's actually a really good movie, but Jake Gyllenhaal in that movie just kind of walks into active crime scenes and just starts filming it. It just reminds me of this movie, but the cops are there in this, and they just don't give a shit, apparently.
No, they don't. Well, she is pretty hot, though.
They're like, that's just Frank's girlfriend, let her in.
She's harmless.
So we go to this warehouse where Billy and Tara are now staying in some old guy's loft or something. This is the only time you're going to see this old guy who's apparently a really good friend with Billy. But man, this guy, and I'm going to play some of his lines, really hams it up in the only minute that he's on screen.
Well, and you know he's a really good friend because Billy just pats him on the back and says, "Thanks, you're a good friend."
As far as I am concerned, I never saw you. And if I did see you, I didn't know you. If I knew you, you forced me to do it. Yes.
You one hell of a friend.
Yeah. A lot of good has done that for me, being a good friend.
Then we get into another fight where Billy this is where Billy yells at Tara again. And then she breaks it down and basically says it's all his fault.
What am I supposed to do here?
Stay alive.
This is your fault.
What?
You grabbed me out the car.
You want to stay there and get shot at?
That's why they're after me now. You don't get it. You're messing with my life. You want to take on the whole world and be my big bad brother. And now you've made me a target.
100%.
Go to the police station. And this is when we get not the chief, but the lieutenant, who's going to be Roddy's boss in this movie. And he just tells him, one of the multiple times he'll tell him this, you're off the case.
Yeah, Piper shows no respect for authority.
Yeah, he's not happy. He just starts cussing at him and saying it was my partner. I should be able to investigate it, blah, blah, blah.
Gotta take you off the case.
Oh, that's bullshit. Who else is going to handle a case like this, huh?
Anybody. Anybody who's not a walking time bomb.
Look, it was my sting, my responsibility, and he was my partner. And the animal that did this to Wallace, he's mine too.
You don't give a damn what you kick along the way. Look at you.
Look, I screw up, you got my head on a platter.
For no reason, they have a TV in there, and the TV report comes on, and they just watch Roddy Piper's interview on the TV.
And the chief does tell him it's so boring they'll never talk to him again.
Yeah. And this is when I noticed, said there are like 3 people that work in this entire police station.
What is this crime so good that do we just keep luckily turning on the news at these times, or does this lady keep breaking into TV?
It's like, every TV in town is just tuned to whatever, I think it's Channel 3 that she's on.
Well, she's pretty hot, though. We have covered that.
She's just the only thing going on in this town, and then I guess we never find out where this town is. But there also
Canada.
Oh, it is?
Well, clearly it's where it was filmed.
Yeah. What's funny is that there only seems to be like 15 people that live in this whole town.
My guess is it's supposed to be like in LA or something like that.
But from here we go to Kasajan's house. They're watching the same news report, so every TV is tuned to Channel 3. And then somebody says, they killed the men we sent, and then the boyfriend says, I guess you... Kasajan says they killed the men we sent, and Kasajan says, the boyfriend says, I guess you sent the wrong men. Well, he basically tells them, like, they need to go looking for both Billy and his girlfriend now. So now there's a hit out on both of them.
See, Billy just sucks.
He should have just fucking mind his own business, or even after this whole thing they should have just went running, because at this point maybe they just shouldn't stay in this town.
Now keep in mind, they all know what this is. It's like none of these people know who Billy is.
Yeah, and I guess at this point they've never seen a picture of him. They don't know anything. But you would
have to
think
keep that in mind for what's coming up.
You would think that her boyfriend would know where she lives.
One would assume. Well, they did leave though.
But they didn't leave until a whole nother day.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So we go to the streets. I love this part. Billy's driving his cab around, asking what I wrote is either hookers or just random strangers if they know where Kasajan is.
You think the cab company be wanting that car back?
I love this as like his only way of trying to find some kingpin is he just drives around town going, hey, you know where this guy is?
But to his credit, it works. He's always one step above the police.
Well, he goes around and then he starts asking bouncers if they know where Kasajan is.
Well, he ends up going into one of Kasajan's bars.
Yeah,
too.
he goes into a bar, grabs the bartender basically by the shirt and asks him if he knows where Kasajan is.
And then what's his logic? He's like, I know this is his place. You call him and tell him to take that hit off my sister, like some random bartender is.
This is what I wrote. I don't think Billy knows how this works. I don't think the bartender maybe have ever even met Kasajan.
Probably not.
You get on the phone and tell that guy that owns this place that they can sit off my sister. Yeah, okay, man.
And he's going to listen to the bartender. Oh, it's Frank, the bartender. We got to take the hit off that girl.
Could you imagine that scene? Like, if the bartender just calls up, yeah, Mr. Kasajan, please.
That would be great. They should have filmed it. He said no.
Yeah, sorry, man. He says no. So this is really only an excuse for a fight scene because those two bouncers inside follow him out. Billy does a lot of spin kicks. Then I love this so we're in the front of a bar, but Billy conveniently throws guys into piles of empty boxes and trash bags that are right next to the front door.
And then the guy, when he gets kicked into the trash, it's like he went through like panes of glass or something. It's this cardboard. He's like impaled and knocked out.
And then he does that great double jump kick in slow motion, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
Oh, he's an amazing martial artist.
Yeah, he gets like a good 6 feet in the air with that kick. It's pretty crazy.
And he's a big dude. He's not like a skinny little guy. He's probably about close to 200, maybe just a little less, but it's all muscle. I mean, he's a big dude to move like that.
He would have fit in well in the Predator cast. Like like if Billy could have acted a little bit better, I think he would have had a great career as an action star.
He's probably making more off. He probably made more off Tybo.
Yeah, I bet he made a lot more off Tybo than any of these movies.
Yeah, these movies were not. I mean, I guess they were good, but yeah, he wasn't. He was paying his bills. That's all. So
we go to this fancy building, and we see Roddy going up an elevator, and we find out this is Helen's place. And I love this part is. So he knocks on her door and she answers. She just answers the door and he goes, I brought something for you. And he gives her like a limp cactus. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't remember that.
I'm like, what the fuck? He gives her this limp cactus and she's just like ecstatic about it. Like, oh, you shouldn't have.
This must have been the point where I went to the bathroom because I knew I was getting ready for another fight scene in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, because, okay, so the next place we go to is I just wrote as someplace. Tara goes into some room and her boyfriend is waiting there. Oh, no, this part's great. No fight scene yet. She goes into this room where her boyfriend is, which we find out is his place. And he's got like his hands behind a pillow. It's like he's sitting on this chair and he's just got a pillow on his lap and his hands behind it. And I go, I wonder what's behind there.
Yeah, at first I just figured he was jacking off.
Also, I didn't know, like, I guess they didn't set it up, but she must have called and said, I'm coming over or something.
He was just waiting. He knew she'd be back.
He's like, and how long was he waiting there? Just days? Like, well, she'll eventually show up.
Because he should have been on the hunt looking for her ass.
Yeah, I assume he knows where she lives. This part's weird, though. So she walks in, and then she, like, gets on her knees in front of him, and then takes off the pillow, and there's a gun. And she goes, what is it for? And he says, I was sent here to kill you, but this is his place.
I know it's his house. They told him to, okay, I want you to go wait at home, and if she shows up, shoot her. That's what she should have said. She said, no, what do you mean sent you? I came here. Yeah.
So she puts the gun, then she takes his hand and puts the gun to her head and says, go ahead, do it. He does it, but I wrote, it would have been really funny if he just did.
Oh, that would have been great.
It was he just goes, all right, well.
Then it could have turned into a revenge movie.
Yeah. I don't think it would have changed much if he had killed her here, really.
Good point.
Instead, they start having sex, and I wrote, I wonder if Billy's near, he might get jealous.
Billy's still shaking people down.
We then go to, so now we know where Billy goes to. Is I wrote some sort of ruffian hangout where we have a bunch of people just dressed, like a bunch of just white people dressed in jean jackets and such, just hanging out at first while cars are doing donuts.
But see, here's the best part. Like, when Billy goes down, he beats this dude up and steals his clothes and puts his hood on.
Yeah.
No one knows what he looks like.
Yeah, okay.
He still beats up a random guy. He's got so much dedication to his mission. he even though no one knows who he is, he still beats some guy up to put on a disguise.
And with this disguise, by the way, so the way he gets it is he pulls his cab up in plain view, by the way, because there's just a chain link fence outside of this thing. He pulls up his
it's like
cab
underneath a bridge somewhere.
Yeah, he pulls it like up to the front gate, parks it, and then sneaks up in the light to the chain link fence, and then climbs over it. And he finds some guy just pissing on a wall, knocks him out, like you said, takes his clothes, takes his hoodie, and tries to blend in.
And he just puts the hood on.
Yeah.
No shirt, keep in mind, but he puts the hood on.
He looks more suspicious now than ever.
And once again, no one knew what he looked like. He could have just walked in there.
But he's going to make himself known in this scene. I love this part.
This scene's awesome.
He tries to blend in. We see guys exchanging money, and then that race happens where these cars are just playing chicken. And I love this.
No sense.
They're playing chicken with people on each side. Like, there's crowds of people on both sides of the cars, and they're just cheering. I'm like, well, I don't know how this is going to end, but I assume some of these people must die just spectating.
Well, yeah.
Because they're a good, 10 feet away from the cars. But one of the cars pulls away, goes off some jump, hits a van, and then explodes.
A lot of cars explode in this movie as it goes.
But I wrote, okay, so at this point, I think somebody would notice. At this point, cops, maybe the fire department's on their way, because a car just exploded and flames are just flying into the air.
And they're clearly just under an underpass somewhere.
Yeah, so people would notice. But they're all just hanging out still, betting on more chicken races. And we see that Chaka's there. And apparently he wins some money from a guy, and this is the best. So while they're exchanging money, you see that Billy has his hoodie on and is standing maybe 3 feet from them.
He's just eyeballing him. He doesn't have his head down like he's casually listening. He's just staring at him.
Yeah, he's not blending it at all. He's just seriously 5 feet from them, staring at them. You're right, eyeballing them. And then Chaka immediately notices him and goes, well, who the hell is that guy? And then they all start piling in, and we get this big fight scene, which is one of my favorite things in action movies, is we form a human circle around him, and then one by one, a henchman will come up and get their ass kicked.
Yeah, because 10 guys never bum rush you in an action.
Yeah. It's he's got to fight. He fights one guy, then another guy, and then that giant guy comes in.
He beats them all.
Yeah, beats it. And the funny thing is, there's not even a point where he's even slightly losing a fight.
No, he's just unstoppable.
Even the huge, 7 foot tall guy just straight up kicks his ass. So he kicks that guy's ass, and then Billy starts running away, and then the big guy gets up and says, get him. And it's well, why'd they even let him leave?
Yeah, they're surrounding him. They can just advanced a little bit.
And the way Billy gets away is he climbs up a piece of fence, but for some reason the bad guys get foiled by it.
Bad guys can't climb fences, or when they're driving cars, they can't turn corners.
It's this loose piece of fence that's leaned up against a wall, and Billy climbs up it, and then the other guys try to climb up it, and he kicks it down, and none of them are smart enough to just put it back on the wall and climb up again. Oh. But then, for no reason at all, Roddy Piper shows up.
Packing his gun, too.
Yeah, pulls the gun out again.
Got it drawn. Yeah, he's ready.
Pulls the gun out on Billy, and I wrote, well, how did he get here? He must have seen that huge car fire.
I was going to say, he probably saw a car fire.
And then him and Billy get in this car chase where it's just kind of, it's like you could tell the budget's not big because they maybe drive for a second onto streets, but then they just go into like a warehouse area where they were obviously allowed to film.
But see, that's what makes no sense. Why would you keep veering off into abandoned areas? Why wouldn't you just stay on the main road?
You would never veer off. Like, hey, you know how we'll get away from these bad guys with guns? Let's go into this warehouse and then drive into it.
Yeah.
And so they like go down this hallway of the warehouse where it ends in a dead end. And Roddy Piper just leans out the window and starts firing wildly at the car and somehow hits the hood of the other car up.
He hits it like all 9 times and just blows it complete out.
And I love this is that, so they're going to hit a wall and then Roddy gets back in the car and turns and it's fine. But then the other car, instead of putting on the brakes, they just run straight into the wall at 80 miles an hour.
In the other car's defense, the hood got shot up. They couldn't see.
Well, I was saying okay, so if I'm in a gunfight and my hood gets shot up, I'm probably going to put on the brakes at this point and be like, all right.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But they run into this wall at full speed. I love that part.
I just love that the car blows up, yet it doesn't smash the wall.
Yeah, the wall, which just looks like sheet metal, stops the car dead. Like it's like a concrete wall or something.
Yeah, it causes it to blow up.
Yeah. So then we find out that Billy has Kasajan after him, and he has a hit out on his sister. And I wrote, I think if Billy stopped making all these things worse, he's making all these things worse by just going and finding Kasajan's guys and kicking their ass.
Yeah, he should just get a job as a bouncer or something, Obviously, he just wants to beat up people.
You're not helping yourself, man, if you're just going around killing his people.
Yeah.
Just run away. Just go to another town. Pack your bags.
Yeah, obviously, because Kasajan's not going to chase you. He's got too many businesses he's got to run in this town.
Yeah. It's and all Billy does is drive a cab. It's you know what? You can probably drive a cab somewhere else. And it doesn't look like there's too many fares anyways.
I was going to say, Billy ain't doing his job. That's why he needs her to get a job to pay the rent. He's driving that cab around.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, more bad guys show up and start shooting at them. All right, so this part gets really weird because they're in this gunfight where, for some reason, Roddy Piper's decided to give Billy a gun. He asks him to cover him. A helicopter shows up, and then it just ends.
They must have ran out of money. Or something. Because, you see none of the fight. You don't even know what it ends.
It makes no sense. It just ends. They're in the middle of shooting, and then it just cuts.
Yeah, because you see the helicopter coming, then they're just watching the news footage.
And I was like, yeah, okay, so you're right. It either they ran out of money or something, or my theory is maybe somebody fucked up the rest of the filming that night.
That could have, yeah, because it really, there's no reason why you would cut it at that point in time.
One of the PAs probably didn't check the gate. All the footage got exposed, and they're like, well, we can't film it again, so we'll just pretend we did. They cut to the police station where Roddy Piper and the lieutenant are just watching the helicopter feed because it was from the news.
Yeah, because this bitch is everywhere filming this stuff.
Yeah, and I wrote, okay, so what the fuck happened with the rest of the scene? Also, what happened with him and Billy?
Billy just ran away.
I guess, but we don't even know. He doesn't even really say anything. Because the lieutenant goes, there was somebody helping you.
Yeah, and he's like, no, there wasn't.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I guess you just did it yourself. And I'm like, all right, well, what the hell just happened? How did he get out of it?
Kill 20 guys? Yeah, how did he get out of this mess?
But then we find out, we go back to Helen's apartment, and this is, when they're in bed together. And they're watching they spend their time in bed watching news tapes that Helen recorded of the footage she didn't put on the news, which shows Billy.
Yeah. Because he tells her to leave it alone.
And this is when I was like, okay, they must just follow Roddy Piper everywhere. Because how the fuck would she know where he was? I mean...
Well, then again, they could have just got to complain about a giant explosion underneath an overpass, too.
Well, and Channel 3 is on the case. They're always on the fucking case.
I mean, technically, Piper drove around the block.
So she asks who Billy is, and Roddy Piper tells her his whole backstory, and then she says she's going to find his sister, and Roddy's like, don't do that. That's pretty much all that happens in that scene.
Yeah, because he says, I don't know how far I'm going to go on this one.
Yeah. So we go to Tara and her boyfriend. Looks like the next morning, they're just rolling around in bed, and then he says, I should have killed you when I had the chance to her. And I wrote, great pillow talk.
I should have killed you when I had the chance.
It comes out of nowhere that he says that. And then she goes, well, we can't stay here long because they're going to start looking for me. And I'm like, well, at this point, if they didn't hear from him, don't you think they would have called him and like, so did she show up? Or
yeah, because it's been now like a day or two. And this guy's clearly not coming to work.
Okay, and then it gets... This part is when I thought, okay, something's wrong with this movie. And I thought maybe the YouTube version was not the full movie. Because all of a sudden, we cut to Billy breaking down a door and yelling, Kasajan, I want my sister back.
Kasajan, I want Tara back. You hear me?
No, that's straight up. It's not cut. That's the movie.
It's so fucking confusing. We have no idea what's happening. He breaks down this door. He starts yelling, Kasajan, I want my sister back. What the fuck is happening? I don't know.
Well, he went back to his like boiler room hideout, and she wasn't there, so he just assumed that. Well, you would assume if she has a hit on her, she's dead, but in his mind, she's been kidnapped.
And we find out this is just some whorehouse.
Yeah.
And he just starts kicking everybody's ass in the whorehouse. He gets in this fight with some big guy, and he does that kick, and then there's like a flash of lightning while he kicks this guy.
Well, he's beating up poor customers and everything, too.
Yeah, and they're like they're laying down in a bed in a corner, like just terrified of him.
Yeah, this guy's a maniac.
So he just leaves graffiti on a wall, which just says Tara, and then he leaves, but not without first kicking down a paper wall.
He's got to kick the wall. Don't go through the opening. Kick it bigger.
And I just wrote at the end of the scene, what the fuck just happened?
Because it was like a randomly inserted scene almost.
At this point, I paused the movie and I was looking at the runtime of this movie in multiple places being like, no. I missed something. This must be like a TV edit or something. There's a whole scene missing. And this is why I have my theory of maybe a director got replaced at some point, because this is where the movie just starts. It's just fight scene after fight scene at this point.
Yeah. Very good fight scenes, though.
Yeah, all well choreographed, but however, no story involved. We have no idea what the hell's going on or anything. Because
it shows you Billy. It really shows you that his character is a dummy. Because, like I said, there's a hit on her, but he thinks she was kidnapped.
Yeah, because at this point, how does he know they have her?
Yeah, your logic would be that they killed her and dumped her somewhere.
Yeah, but he's just assumed she's kidnapped. Like, we're missing something very important that they just cut out of the movie.
Well, he went home and she wasn't there. He put two and two together.
So from that fight scene, we just go to Kasajan's house, and for some reason, Roddy Piper shows up. And I do like this part is some kid answers the door. And I didn't know, at first I thought maybe this was Kasajan's son or something.
See, that's what I thought too, but it wasn't.
Because he flashes the badge at him, and the kid says he can't come in. And I was right. Well, he is right. I mean, there's no warrant. Like, you can't just flash your badge and walk into a house. Like, he should know as a detective it doesn't work that way.
He's a renegade kind of cop.
But so the way he gets in is he goes, well, what about I call your parole officer? And then I love this part. The kid just runs away.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not telling you. No, because he tells the kid, remember, he says you could go back to having to get on your knees for all those big guys at the in the reform school or whatever. Yeah, the kid obviously was getting raped on a daily basis or something. So he just runs away.
He not just runs away like in the house. He runs away from the house. Like, just runs out the front door.
You don't want to get raped anymore in prison.
You'd be back bending over for them big boys for another 3 years now, wouldn't you, huh?
So then we cut to Kasajan getting acupuncture. which is definitely one of the best scenes when he's smoking that cigarette.
Oh, God, yeah.
Getting acupunctured by some acupuncturist guy. And then Roddy Piper sneaks into the room with his gun out, because he's always got his gun out.
He's always got his gun, yeah.
And he like tells the acupuncture guy, he's like, be quiet. He's got his finger over his mouth. And the guy just leaves. And Kasajan starts saying things. I couldn't really make out what he was saying, but he just starts...
Like, the smoke will leave. I'm assuming he was doing it to quit smoking or something. That's my only guess.
I had no idea what was going on there. But Roddy Piper just starts flicking the needles. Like he's like flicking them with his finger like he's kicking a paper football or something.
Flicking them pretty hard, too.
Yeah. And like Kasajan keeps like flinching, you know?
Then he finally just takes the last one and sticks it right on his head.
And then, that's when Kasajan stands up. He's all pissed, and he goes, "Who the hell are you?" And Roddy Piper holds up the needle and goes, "I'm the apprentice."
That's right.
And Kasajan just goes, No, you're dead.
Who the hell are you? I'm the apprentice. No. You're dead.
And I didn't even realize this, is that Chaka shows up and just starts fighting Roddy Piper.
Yeah, he grabs him from the back. I wouldn't call it much of a fight.
Yeah, well, okay, so he grabs him and then tries to bite his ear. And then Roddy Piper gets pissed and then starts like ramming his face into walls like it's a turnbuckle.
Well, and then he hits the bulldog, and then he follows it up by drop kicking him out a door.
Yeah. It just becomes a wrestling match at that point, which is great. And I guess this is why they picked the guy who for that role that just does a bunch of stunts, because it looks great, that part.
And how many times do you see a fight scene where you get a bulldog and a drop kick?
In slow motion, too, which was so funny. So he runs outside after he kicks him through that window or door. He puts him on something, and then he pulls out the guy's knife, Chaka's knife, and says the line, "You want to be dead? Isn't that what you said? Here's the chance of a lifetime." And then he turns on a grill burner and I guess lights his dick on fire.
Yes, his crotch is like on fire there for a second.
And then he just kind of throws him on the ground and arrests him.
And he's doing it all by the book. Then after he's beaten the man half to death, then he reads his rights.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, whoa, Roddy, this is not going to work. You just went into a house without any sort of probable cause or warrant and just started getting a fight with a guy.
Yeah, that's he's a different kind of policeman.
Well, Kasaja walks out and he's like, he's not really mad. He's just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he's like, when he's like, he's going to arrest or whatever. He's like, he ain't gonna be there. You won't have him that long.
Yeah, because he goes, "What's the charges?" And then Roddy Piper's like, "Murder. He murdered my partner." And I was like, "Oh, that is true. He did murder him." However, he just walked into this house. Like, this is like a real Bronson type police work, I'd say.
Bronson would have at least killed everyone.
Yeah, at this point, the movie would have ended. Bronson would have just shot Kasajan and ended the movie.
Yeah.
So we go to the police station, and I do like this. As Roddy Piper walks in with Chaka, and I was like, do you think... I guess this is just straight from the house, but then these lawyers walk up the stairs with them, and I'm like, well, I wonder, do you think they followed him straight from the house, those lawyers?
Yeah, do they live with the guy?
Because they're right there. And the lawyers are telling him, like, he's not going to be in here long, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote, at this point, there's maybe 10 people in total that work at this police station. And it was obvious they couldn't afford extras or much lighting, because this is also the darkest police station I've ever seen.
It doesn't even look like a police station. It just looks like some random, like, like when one of those fly-by-night telemarketing companies, takes over a building. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, because, you never see a cell or anything, or an interrogation room. It's just like... It's got that old wood and like some smoky glass and stuff, and that's it.
And a bunch of desks.
Which nobody works at.
No, they're all empty. They've got stacks of paper on them.
So we go to some building after that, and Billy is sneaking around, and we see there's these guys playing poker, and then Billy just shoots up the poker game.
Yeah, he shoots him through the door. Like, he just, like, empties a whole clip.
And did you notice...
Like, wounds everyone.
Billy got that gun from Roddy Piper.
Yeah, he kept it. Piper's now provided this guy with a tool of death.
Yeah, okay, now Piper is definitely getting fired because they're going to trace those ballistics back to his gun and be like, whoa, why did you give somebody your gun?
I guess that's why he's counting on the reporting crew to come in there and contaminate everything.
It's all part of his plan at this point.
Yeah.
Because I love this. Billy doesn't even ask questions. He just starts shooting them all through the door. And all these guys are like bloody on the ground. And then he says something like, okay, one of you better tell me where Tara is. And he says something about how only one of you is going to live.
Yeah, only one of you is leaving. and so the one guy just looks. He kills the other two. He's like walking to this big hole in the door. They're both dead. It's just me.
I think, honestly, smartest guy in the movie.
Well, and then Billy's so dumb, though. He grabs this guy who's wounded. Tell this agent to let my sister go.
And then knocks him out. But I thought it was like, well, he chokes the guy, tells him, yeah, tell this agent to let my sister go, or I want her back, and then punches him and leaves. And I was like, well, did he just kill him?
And why didn't he take another gun and like shoot Tara in bullets on the wall?
Yeah. Oh God, that would have been great. But we do find out that he does leave her name somewhere, and we'll find out that soon. If he had shot Tara's name on the wall, though, that would have been so fitting.
That would have been better.
Or shot it into one of the guy's bodies, or carved it or something. So this part, I know they filmed afterwards because they totally forgot to film why Frank and Helen knew where to go. Is we just cut to a payphone and Helen's on the phone and just walks out, and then she tells Roddy Piper that somebody just trashed one of Kasajan's fronts, and I wrote, I think it's funny how she's a better cop than he is.
Oh, he's a horrible cop. Billy Blanks is a better detective.
Like, he's just sitting on a bench. He's like, oh, what's going on? She's like, all right, I got the news. Somebody knocked over a thing. And then he even says something. He's like, oh, we should just put the police scanner right to your beeper, huh?
Well, you think about it, though, like, Billy Blanks he was just walking up to people on the street, where's Kasajan live? You know, and he's doing better than Piper.
Yeah. Piper's terrible. He just goes where the explosion is.
He's a horrible cop.
So they just leave. Then we go to Kasajan's house, and he's playing pool while Chaka's watching. And this is what I love, is there's multiple parts where Kasajan's henchmen will like talk back to him in ways that you wouldn't normally see, like lackeys talk to a boss.
Yeah, he's got some mouthy ass lackeys is what he's got.
Because Chaka says,
and still no one's figured out that the one lackey has disappeared for 3 days now.
Yeah, they're not even suspicious at all at this point. They're like, yeah, give him some time. He had to kill his girlfriend, you know, maybe he's on paid vacation. He'll come back. But
he's filling in for a bartender at one of those places.
But Chaka says, and he says this to Kasajan, he goes, you know, the word on the street is you're next. But and he goes, but don't worry, Mr. Kasajan. And he says back to him, he goes, I'm not worried. You should be worried.
You know, the word on the street says you're next. But don't worry, Mr. Kasajan.
I'm not worried. You should be worried.
Well, yeah, because this guy just got his ass handed to him.
Yeah, and then he says, find him, find her, kill him. And I was like, okay, well, I guess he bailed Chaka out of jail or something. Like, the last thing we saw was him being arrested.
Well, remember the lawyer did say he'd be out in the morning.
But we see, this is the part where it's like they just started cutting scenes out at a record pace.
Yeah.
Like, and they don't even give you
more fight scenes.
Like, they could have ADR'd one line of exposition or something. It seemed like they had just really fucked up, and they were like, we got to cut it down, make it 82 minutes, cut out this scene. We don't need it. It just seems like so much was left on the cutting room floor at this point.
It didn't bother me, though, when you look at the acting involved in this.
No, because the story parts are the parts where it's the slowest. So
yeah.
So then we go to Frank and Helen. Roddy Piper and Helen showed up to the remnants of that card game. And I love this is you see the guy who was left roll out in a gurney, and then Roddy Piper stops it and goes, "Who did this to you?" And I'm like, you should know by now. He knows damn well who did this.
I wonder where he got a gun.
And then we see Tara's name spray painted onto a wall, which was funny because I was like, well, you know what? They never went to that whorehouse that Billy tore up. I guess they never reported that to the police, but apparently they reported this. They enter the crime scene, and we see all the dead bodies, and this is what I wrote. I guess Helen is now like a deputized cop who can just walk into active crime scenes because nobody's asking her, like,
let her do whatever now.
Like, who are you? What are you doing here? It's like, oh, no. I imagine the cops at the door, like, stopping him, going like, oh, whoa, who's she? And he's like, she's with me.
She's with me.
So she starts looking around doing detective work while Roddy Piper just grabs a clipboard and starts looking at papers. It's like, man, you should know who did this. There's only one fucking guy who's killing all Kasajan's guys.
Exactly, the guy you gave a gun to.
And you know what? Maybe he's looking at those papers to be like, oh shit, did they write anything down about him shooting this guy with a certain gun?
He's trying to brush off the fingerprints.
So we go to, from here, Tara walking out of her boyfriend's apartment, and we see this little person, and he comes up and he asks her for money, and then he gets to a payphone and then just calls Helen. And I wrote, well, that was fast, because she says something about how she's going to find his sister.
Helen's got more snitches on the street than Piper.
That's what I'm saying. They should make her a cop.
Yeah.
She's better than the whole police force.
Demote Piper to her cameraman.
Yeah, just make Piper the cameraman. So we go from there to the police station, and this is when Roddy Piper gets mad they let him Chaka out of jail. Like he didn't know it or something. It seems like they just...
the guy's been out probably for a day now.
Yeah, and he's like, what do you mean you left him out? And he's all pissed, and then the lieutenant says, for the second time, you're off the case. And then he also says to him, I think you know who killed all those guys at the card game.
Where's your other gun at, bud?
We go to Roddy working at his desk. He's trying to collect information because he just can't fucking put two and two together that it must be that other guy. But he gets on the phone with some guy, and then he gets some sort of information. We don't know what the fuck what. But then all of a sudden, we cut to a junkyard, and he's sitting outside this junkyard in a car drinking coffee.
He's like on the stakeout.
And then, for no reason, Billy just shows up.
Yes, Billy's police detective. His work works better.
So he goes to this junkyard, and he just starts rummaging around, and Roddy Piper doesn't see him at all. Billy kicks a bunch of ass. We don't know what's going on at this point, but we assume these guys must be Kasajan's guys or something. One of the guys he's beaten up, some guy shows up with a shotgun. He fires it, and that's when Roddy Piper's like, oh shit, better police, and then runs over. You see that shot of him looking at the junkyard, but for some reason he gets in by like climbing a shipping crate or something instead of just going through the front.
Yeah, instead of just walking in the front door.
And he sees two guys sneaking up at Billy, and then he just kills them, the other guys. But then Billy like runs away.
He didn't run away. He like disappeared.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, where'd he go? Oh, don't worry, he'll find him. Because we see Billy has grabbed a torch, and he's torching Tara's name into the side of the building.
Yeah, Billy had to beat up a couple other guys first, though.
Yeah, I wrote, I think he's very unstable. Like, Billy needs to be nuts. Removed from society.
These could have just been guys working at a junkyard. You know, they could have just been regular workers on the clock.
Yeah, well, Kasajan owns this place, but yeah, you're right. There's no evidence that these guys are doing anything illegal.
They weren't like chopping cars or anything.
And Billy just walks in, fighting them, potentially killing them, doesn't give a shit.
Then he graffitis up the place.
Yeah, by torching his sister's name into a wall. Again, making himself and her quite the target. Roddy comes in, he finds Billy, And he's like, all right, well, you're going downtown. And Billy goes, for what? And I'm like, okay, hold on.
You murdered like 18 people.
You have murdered a bunch of people. He obviously knows you did. He gave you that gun. He knows what you've done. And I wrote, Frank was dumb enough to give him the gun. Roddy tells him, you can't keep doing this. Billy says something like, I'm going to walk away. And then they get that standoff where he goes, if you try to run, I'm going to shoot you. I can't let you go. But then for some reason, Billy convinces him they should be working together to stop Kasajan.
Yeah, he's like, we both want the same thing. Help me.
And I just wrote,
if Piper was smart, he would have just killed him because that would have maybe got him off the hook for when Eternal Affairs comes down on his ass.
Yeah, when they eventually find those ballistics tracked back to his gun. I wrote, no. This is not how this works. You can't just deputize everybody.
Well, he did give him a gun. I mean...
So then from there, we see Helen, and she's at the TV station, and then she just gets a note and runs off. That's all that happens. We go to Helen at the boyfriend's apartment, and now she's interviewing Tara. And I wrote,
that made no sense.
For what? And then her boyfriend even goes, what is this for? And I wrote, I'm wondering as well. And
she do a 5-part expose, or
she goes, I just want to tell your story about lovebirds caught between two sides or something. I'm like, what the fuck? What is this?
Yeah, this is a story about a dumb bitch whose brother dragged her out of a car and started a gang war.
And Tara's all excited because she's like, well, we're going to be on TV. And I wrote, well,
so fucking dumb.
The only problem with this is Helen's filming that interview in the boyfriend's apartment, which everybody in this town, including Kasajan, which the boyfriend knows, watches Channel 3. They're going to know it's his apartment.
So they're probably going to know where the guy lives. Probably still, I'm surprised they still have a question. He hasn't been to work in a week.
Yeah. Like nobody's called, nobody's come over. Yeah, I wrote, which is amazing. Nobody's come looking for him there. And then they're going to air that footage on the news. Also, this will show that Helen knows where she is. So she is so dumb that she doesn't realize this is going to make her a target.
Yeah, Helen couldn't put a bag over her head or just distorted the voice or something.
Yeah, but she's like, no. I went and interviewed these people. And see, now this is the only time when Roddy Piper is a good cop, is him and Billy are at a bar, which is not good policing. But they go to watch a news report on TV, which, by the way, you never see where Roddy Piper lives, and I have a theory that he might just be a homeless man.
That could be.
It's the only time you see him is he's either at a bar or at Helen's place.
Helen appeared to have a very nice house, though.
It would be funny if you found out that Roddy Piper's character had like a wife and kid on the side.
Maybe he moved into Billy's apartment.
Yeah. So they're at this bar, apparently planning their attack, and then the news report comes on. But before they watch the news report, the bartender switches it over to a basketball game. And Roddy Piper's like, can you switch it back? And I love this is that the bartender kind of rolls his eyes like, ugh, fine.
The only guy in town that don't watch Channel 3 news.
He's had enough of it. So the report comes on. She says something about lovers caught in a crossfire. I was like, what the hell are they doing? Why is this on the news? And then Piper just flips out. He calls the station and he's like, can you get Helen? They're like, she's on the air. And he's like, I know, get her off. They won't. So he tells Billy we need to go. We go to outside the TV station, and then Helen, not thinking she just made herself a target, is attacked by some guy. It's actually the kid that ran away from the house that Roddy Piper told is going to go get raped again in prison. She kicks his ass, and I was like, well, it's kind of funny she didn't realize that putting out all that information on the news would make her a target.
Yeah, considering the main girl she interviewed has a hit out on her.
Yeah, she wouldn't like put two and two together at all. Like, well, they're just looking for her. What? They don't have anything to do with me.
Yeah, they don't have anything to do with me. I'm showing them where they are. I should get a reward.
Freedom of the press, Chaka shows up. He shoves her into a car. He's still wearing his sunglasses, even though it's late at night at this point. He asked where they are, and I wrote, maybe try the guy's apartment. She won't tell him, and I wrote, why not?
Yeah, she got her news story. What does she care?
What the fuck does she care about any of these people?
Yeah, she's not emotionally vested in them.
But we find out either he knows or she knows because, well, okay, they drive off, and then Frank and Billy show up late, and they go into the TV station. But we find out that Chaka or she knows where to go because the next scene is they're at... Okay, we cut to the boyfriend's apartment, and I love this part, though. We see Tara, like, looking in a mirror, and he says, for Christ's sakes, get on with it. We need to get out of here. And she's just doing her makeup.
Yeah.
And then she stands up and she goes, what do you think?
For Christ's sakes, get on with it. We gotta get out of here.
What do you think?
And then a door gets slammed down. Chaka comes in and shoots him.
The guy did have it coming. He was kind of a worthless part of the organization.
And he jumps on top of Tara on the bed. He pulls her on the bed, and she's like, oh, you killed him. And then she says, we didn't do anything. And he says, yes, you did. Then Helen comes in and starts telling Chaka, you got no balls. I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. You just saw him, like, kill a man, basically.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything!
Yes, you did.
No balls or brains, huh, Chaka?
Shut her up.
Kasajian wants the war to stop. It's her brother you want, not her.
He's next.
No, he's not. You can't get him. He's beating you all over town. My guess is if he keeps it up, you're a dead man.
Shut the fuck up.
But then she does say the one important thing. She goes, well, if you kill his sister, then you won't have any leverage. I wrote, true. However, Billy would never know if he killed his sister, so that doesn't really make any difference.
You just keep thinking she's missing if they hid the body right.
Yeah. But then, like Chaka always does, says they're going to take a boat ride. And then they just leave, and I wondered at this point, well, did the other guy die? Because it looked like he was only shot in the arm. At this point, we don't know. So we go back to the TV station. Roddy Piper and Billy are watching some guy write down something, and then he gives them a note, and they take off. Fucking useless scene. They show up to the apartment, but it's too late. But they find out the guy who was shot, the boyfriend, is alive. And then he just tells them where they take Tara. And I wrote, well, why the hell didn't Chaka just kill him?
Yeah, why didn't he shoot him a couple more times to make sure he's... I mean, he made it a point to kill a mortally wounded cop. He couldn't have killed the guy that he shot in the arm.
Well, and he shot that guy on the that was bleeding out on the boat, so he has no problem with killing somebody that works for the organization. So we go to the docks. Billy and Frank show up. Billy and Roddy Piper show up. And now we're on some giant boat, like a huge shipping boat now. And I wrote, it looks like they definitely upgraded their boat from the last trip.
Oh, yeah, it's a big freighter.
Yeah. And then I think the whole point of this is they definitely just got the permission to film on that freighter, but also they were probably so happy because the way that Roddy Piper and Billy get on the boat is they demonstrate their strength by climbing up a rope that's tied to the boat, tied to the harbor. Then it gets
for some reason this boat is heavily guarded.
Yeah, there's just guys all over the place, which is a great opportunity to just see them. They kind of just walk around and kick ass. They beat up that one guy, and he gets knocked out. And then Roddy Piper like pats his head goodnight.
Yeah,
and then takes.
He's done that in wrestling before too.
So I guess it was like a little a wink to his wrestling stuff, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's already done, bulldogs and drop kicks. So
he pats him goodnight and then grabs his gun and he tries to give it to Billy. And then Billy goes, I don't want a 6-shooter. I want an automatic. And then he goes, chrome. I'm like, okay, getting a little picky now.
I say he's picky. He doesn't need a gun. He just kills people with his bare hands anyway.
And then Roddy Piper says, I look like Santa Claus to you?
I don't want a 6-shooter. I want an automatic. Chrome.
I look like Santa Claus to you, huh?
And then he keeps the gun. Billy doesn't take it, so apparently he was real serious about that.
Yeah.
They sneak around the boat, beat up a couple more guys. At one point, they beat up those 2 guys and then run them into each other with their heads smashing like it's some sort of tag team match.
Damn right.
he tries to give Billy another 6-shooter and he won't take it, but then he does give him an automatic. So apparently he found one on a guy.
Yeah, so by now they've beaten down enough people.
Yeah. So then the next thing is Billy kicks some random guy, and then we cut to like Roddy Piper behind a big tank, and Billy walks over and he goes, "This is Ether. The son of a bitch is processing his own drugs." I'm like, okay, so now we're going to add a whole nother level of this operation.
He's not just a drug dealer, he's also the cook, too.
Yeah.
And he cooks it on a freighter.
It's like all the amount of exposition they've left out, and now we're getting too much. Like, and this movie's got 10 more minutes left.
Yeah, barely.
So we see these henchmen taking Helen and Tara to a room on top of the ship. Billy and Frank make their way, or they make this trail of ether, and then they light it and they run away to hide. Roddy Piper's like covering his ears, and then all of a sudden we see a foot put out the flame. And then they wait for the explosion, nothing's happening. Billy sneaks up to find out what's going on. And I love this part is like, he's not suspicious at all that somebody may have seen it. He's just like, oh, I guess it went out. And then like puts down his gun and like pulls out a lighter and slowly tries to relight it.
Yeah, Billy's not the smartest guy out there.
And then his old nemesis from the hooligan party, the huge guy, shows up, and they get in this big fight. For some reason, Roddy Piper doesn't wait for him, and he just decides, I'm going to go rescue them. He just walks over and like knocks out a guy, and then a guy comes over and knocks him out with a shotgun. Then we just see Billy and that guy fighting more. Then Roddy Piper wakes up into the room with Chaka, and Helen and Kasajan are there. Kasajan tells him he's going to have fun with the ladies, clean up after, and throw out the trash, and then takes off. And then we just see Chaka kind of beat up Roddy Piper for a while. It goes on and on for a fight.
Chaka only has a few moves.
Yeah, the ear bite.
Pretty much, yeah, that's his finisher.
He should have pulled out his knife again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting why he kept like torturing him instead of just ending it right there. And I guess they're not suspicious that maybe somebody else was with Roddy Piper at that point, thinking he's still working alone.
Nobody else was ever suspicious of it. I mean, why should they be?
And so this part that comes up next is confusing, because we go to this room, like a penthouse in this shipping ship, I guess. That Kasajan has like acupuncture needles out, and he's gonna use a needle on Helen and like stab her in the eye. And I'm like, for what? What the fuck information is he gonna get out of her?
Well, yeah, she is a news reporter for Channel 3. She might know everything.
But it's like, well, they got the guy they were looking for. They
got
killed
the girl that they had to hit on.
Yes.
That they killed.
What type of information is he gonna get out of her?
And why haven't they killed Tara yet?
Exactly. Like they don't kill anybody. They're just beating them up. And well, at this point, Tara's just like an afterthought. He just has her like on the side of the room. And for some reason,
she wasn't filming that day.
For some reason, he's more interested in Helen at this point, which made no sense.
Well, Helen is prettier.
Yeah, he'll but I don't know. Did you see that when he was like going to stab her in the eye or something?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It's like, what is this? And then we cut back to so Chaka's finally done beating up Roddy Piper, but then we cut to, for some reason, Billy and this big guy are still fighting, and then the big guy tries to lift up a barrel, and then Billy, in the slowest possible way, bends down and lights the ether trail again. Like while the guy's holding it, and then this huge explosion happens. Everything gets rocked. The boat gets rocked. The ladies somehow break out of the room. Tara kills a man, so she shoots a guy dead at this point. Doesn't think to shoot Kasajan, which I thought was interesting.
No, it makes it. Maybe she likes him.
She's just like, he's not such
she
a
needs
bad
a job
guy.
at one of his bars.
And then immediately cut to, okay, well, Roddy Piper breaks out of his restraint somehow and then starts killing guys. And then we just cut to Billy just randomly running around. Now he has 2 Uzis with his shirt off and just firing them.
The explosion burned his shirt.
Yeah. And then while Frank's fighting Chaka and Helen and Tara are running away, and Tara kills another man, which, by the way, crack shot from like, I don't know how many feet away, shoots a guy and he dies. And then Billy just runs around firing these Uzis wildly into the air.
Even though it's a ship full of ether.
Like, he's not aiming at all. There's parts where he's just flinging his arms around and shooting it and everything.
It looks cool, though.
Oh, it's great. And so he kills a bunch of people. Eventually, Roddy Piper gets the upper hand on Chaka. He pulls out Chaka's knife and he says, "You want to be dead? It's the chance of a lifetime." And Chaka says, "You can't kill me. You have to read me my rights." But Roddy Piper stabs him in the stomach and he goes, "You got the right to remain silent."
Want to be dead? Huh? Want to be dead? Isn't that what you said? Here's a chance of a lifetime. You can't kill me, pig. You gotta read me my rights. You got the right to remain silent. Forever.
And then we go to Tara and Helen are just wandering around the ship at this point.
Like, nobody knows how to get off of this thing.
Yeah, they're like, hey, what do we do now? And then all of a sudden, Kasajan shows up behind Tara and grabs her. And then Billy shows up out of nowhere and just says, he goes, "Billy, you better come out or I'm going to kill her." Billy comes out. They get in this standoff. And then Billy throws the gun in the air. And for some reason, Kasajan lets go of Tara, which is stupid. It's like, well, you have the upper...
grab the gun.
Yeah, well, it's like you have the upper hand at this point. You can kill Tara.
Yeah.
But Kasajan instead watches this gun fly through the air, and then Billy pulls out another gun and shoots him dead. Kasajan falls off that boat and just lands onto a hood of a car.
Not in the water, mind you. He has to hit the dry spot.
Yeah, I do love that, though, that they made a point of having him land on the car. Billy and Tara hug. They can finally be together again.
Pretty much. Yeah, that is creepy.
They reunite with Frank, Roddy Piper, up in the top of the ship. They talk about something about how it's going to be a great news story, but the guy must disappear. And then Billy and Tara walk off, which I wrote, "I'm assuming to have sex." And then Frank and Helen just walk out of screen, credits roll.
Yeah. They're going to expect that Piper took down a whole drug cartel by himself.
And then I thought was really interesting is that for some reason there's like a dedication to the memory of somebody, like right in the beginning of the end credits. And I was like, man, what a weird movie to dedicate to somebody.
What's really funny is if you watch the one they did after this, Tough and Deadly, Roddy Piper plays a former cop who's now a private detective. You gotta wonder if it was supposed to be the sequel and he got fired.
So I know your recommendation for this movie would be 100%.
Oh, it's, as dumb as it is, you don't watch a movie like this for plot. You watch it for action, and, it delivers. If you're a wrestling fan, it's Piper. And, I mean, it's an hour and 28-minute movie. I would say an hour and 8 minutes of it is fight scenes.
And I thought it was very entertaining. I would definitely recommend it. It's for free on YouTube right now, so you can just go watch it. It seems like nobody's caring enough to take that down. Make sure if you find it on YouTube, there is a version that's all in German or Dutch or something. Don't watch that version. Watch the...
Their other movie, if you really like it, I think on YouTube too, is Tough and Deadly. That's their follow-up film.
Nice. I think you'll have to come back one day with Chris here, and we'll cover that one.
That's Billy Blanks has to act in that one because he's got amnesia.
Oh, man. Well, that sounds good. I'm going to wait to check it out, and hopefully we'll do another episode with it.
And in Mortal Kombat, where he fights zombie serial killers with Sonny Chiba.
I do like the sounds of that one. And we haven't got into a Sonny Chiba movie on the podcast yet, but I have some coming up. I'm just figuring out which one to cover.
Oh, that's his best one. But after that, I would say second would be Street Fighter.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of doing.
That's the most well-known, too. That's where he rips off the guy's balls.
So thanks for joining me, Corey. Really happy you could.
Pleasure was all mine. I like coming on. I hope you have me on again.
Of course. Yeah, I'll have to bring you back with Chris. He will be back at the end of this month, and we'll hopefully get some more episodes recorded for everybody here. I have one more episode we're doing next week with the guest host I had for Dolomite. Chris Hughes will be back, and we're doing. You ever seen 1980s? I forget the year, but Joysticks. You seen that one?
That's the sex comedy, right?
Yeah, the one about video games.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Well, thanks again for joining us, Corey. And
pleasure was all mine. I hope your fans enjoyed it. I hope they actually go out and seek this great classic of cinema.
And it's free, so why not?
Or you can just buy the Region 2 for like $15.
Either way.
If you want to watch it in, widescreen, you got to get that DVD.
Yeah, I watched the YouTube version is full screen, and it's really shitty quality. And there will not be a sequel, because I forgot to mention in the beginning that Roddy Piper actually died last year. He was only 61.
I was really sad when he died, actually.
Yeah, he died of a heart attack, so it's all we know about that. So him and Macho Man both went out pretty early.
And the Ultimate Warrior, they all passed away that year.
It must be all the
years, I'm sorry.
It must be all the steroids or something killing these guys with heart attacks.
Yeah, steroids, drug usage, it takes a toll on you.
Yeah, did you ever watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia when Roddy Piper was on it?
I've only seen a couple of them, and no, I never caught one with him.
Yeah, he plays like a total drugged out wrestler one season. It's pretty funny.
He's probably not stretching. He looked pretty, his last few years there, he looked pretty incoherent, to be honest with you.
He was doing his best Jake the Snake impression, I'd say.
He might not have been acting. They should, now that Jake the Snake's supposedly clean, he should do Death Wish.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I want to see Jake the Snake and Billy Blank's action movie.
Oh, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
I think so. I'd watch it.
I would too.
Well, Corey, where can our listeners find you?
1980s Movie Graveyard. We're on Facebook, Twitter at 80s MV Graveyard. Of course, we got the podcast twice a month with the 80s show, and then now we've added, by the time you hear this, the other 2 times a month will be the phenomenal Pipe Bomb Wrestling podcast.
Nice. I'll have to check that one out. And everybody, one of our listeners, if you've never listened to the show before, you can find us at grindhousefilm.com. We're also at twitter.com, or Twitter. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Just look for the Grindbin podcast.
The fine podcast.
Well, thank you. And definitely check out 1980s Movie Graveyard. I'm a subscriber. I listen to it. Great Commando episode, even though you weren't in it this week, Corey.
No, I wasn't in that. There's been a few episodes I haven't been able to be on, but I'm on the majority of them.
And one day we're going to have to get Goat on this show.
Yes, I have to get all 4 of us.
Yeah, that would be a nice supersized episode where we should take on maybe another Death Wish or something.
I'm thinking, 4 guys talking over each other during Bronson.
Yeah, there you go. 4 guys, Death Wish 4,
Ooh, that would work really well. You might be on to something there.
Sounds good. All right, well, until next time, thanks for listening, everybody. If you like this show, please rate and review us on iTunes.
Hey, Bobby, I got the money. Yeah, I mean the key.